Hello, this is Diego Apellaniz, and in this video I'm going to introduce the new AI Assistants plugin for Rhino. This plugin allows you basically to turn your Grasshopper definitions into AI assistants. So you provide them with an artificial brain, and then you and other users only need to interact with them through the ChatGPT interface of the plugin. We will see how to install this tool, and we'll learn how to use it going through different practical case studies, so you may think of different possibilities to implement this tool in your workflows. First, we will see an AI assistant that generates membrane geometries using the plugin Kangaroo. Then we will see another assistant that uses the plugin Karamba 3D to design and optimize steel truss structures. And finally, we will see a simplified version of our own so-called AI engineer that helps users design family houses and also supports them with design decisions in order to reduce the carbon footprint of their family houses. And last but not least, this tool has been developed by Kiwi, the engineering company I belong to, together with the software development company Accessio. We've been working with 3D AI assistants online that we share with some clients, and we also help other companies create their own AI assistants as well and put them online. And now we have put our know-how into this Rhino plugin, so let's get started. So first things first, let's see how to install this tool. In order to do that, you just need to open Rhino. The tool works for both Rhino 7 and Rhino 8, and then you need to open the package manager. And in the package manager, basically, you just have to type in AI, and then you will see the AI Assistants plugin for Rhino, right? Then you click on install, and probably you may need to restart Rhino so that you see this toolbar here, AI Assistants. And then in order to start the user interface of the plugin that you can see on the right side, you just need either to click on this button, AI Assistants, or you can also type in the command AI Assistant in the command bar. In my opinion, the best way to use this AI Assistants plugin is to dock the user interface to the right part of the Rhino window together with these different toolbars here. And now let's see the different tabs this plugin is made up of. First, we have the AI Assistant tab. Here, this is basically the ChatGPT interface. Then we have the Grasshopper tab, in which you have to load Grasshopper files that have been pre-processed into an AI assistant, as we are going to see later on. Then we have the GPT settings tab. This tab is very important. First, let's focus into the API key. You may not know it, but while you can use ChatGPT for free in the web browser, in order to use it in an external application, you need an API key. We are providing a trial API key so that you may test the tool with the most basic model and for a short amount of messages each month. But of course, you may want to provide your own API key. We have provided also this help link here so that you may see what steps you have to do, but it's actually quite straightforward. You can see here this let's say article, where do I find my OpenAI API key? Then you click on this link. This link will take you to your profile, and here of course you first need to introduce let's say a payment method, and then you can create your API keys. Once you create it, you can copy the full API key. You can see that this one is must. Then once you have your API key, you come back to the plugin, you delete the existing one, you pay the new key, and then you save it. Once you saved your API key, it will be masked so that the full key is not visible anymore, and it will be saved into the system, so every time you open Rhino again, it is loaded into the user interface. Then the next part of the tab is the ChatGPT model. You have these three different models. The first one is the most basic one and the cheapest one, and the GPT-4, of course, is the most expensive and most advanced one. And also important is this footnote here that we are using the API of OpenAI. That means that the messages that you sent to ChatGPT are not going to be used, I repeat, are not going to be used to train the models. At least that's what OpenAI say. And here on the bottom part, you can see some extras we offer on demand. First, we can also provide support to bring your AI assistants online so that you may not only share them with your colleagues at the company, but with external clients that may not have even Rhino installed. And also we can offer ChatGPT models that do not belong to OpenAI, but to Microsoft servers that are hosted either in Europe or America. And finally, we go to the info tab, and well, that's basically it. And now let's see how to use this tool step by step. First, we have the ChatGPT interface in the AI Assistant tab, and you can see here in the top part that the AI Assistant is none, which means that we are just using ChatGPT itself without being connected to any AI Assistant or Grasshopper definition in any way. Let's try it out. You can say hello, and then we'll get, of course, the answer of the normal ChatGPT with the model you have selected. And now, of course, comes the interesting part. How can we connect ChatGPT to our Grasshopper definitions? The first thing you need to do is to pre-process your Grasshopper definitions so that you turn them into AI assistants. And let's see how to do that. This is a very basic example so that we all understand this workflow. And what this Grasshopper definition does, it basically draws a polygon in Rhino, as you can see here. Exactly, this is the polygon. It calculates the area and it returns a success if everything was calculated properly, and the area in square units. And the inputs for that are just the radius, the number of segments of the polygon, and the so-called fillet radius. Okay, so this is our Grasshopper definition, and now how do we convert that into an AI assistant? So for that, we need to go to the AI assistant tab of in Grasshopper that you will see once you install the plugin with the package manager, and basically you just need to follow this process. First, you need to provide an instruction in the Grasshopper definition. This is kind of the artificial brain that the AI assistant will have. And in this case, we are getting this component here, and what we are specifying is an instruction. You are an AI assistant specialized merely in the calculation of polygon areas, and also some tips I recommend: deny knowledge on other areas. Also, convert JSON strings to natural language messages. This tip is important when the assistant needs to process the results that he's going to get or it's going to get from Grasshopper so that it turns them into natural language messages. And finally, another thing, we're going to see that the inputs are either, let's say, required or optional, but the GPT assistant does not really know that exactly. So it is very interesting to remind him, or to remind it, that in this case, once you get the radius and the number of sides, you can just draw the polygon without needing to get any information about this last fillet radius. And then you provide a name for the function, in this case polygon area, and then a description of this function. In this case, it calculates the area of a regular polygon. Then we go to the second part, the inputs. As you can see, there are different kinds of inputs that you can provide your AI assistant with. You can use a boolean, a number, a string, or an array, which is basically a list, as we are going to see in the next example. And in this example, we have just number parameters. First, we have the radius, and we have to provide a name for this parameter, for this input parameter. In this case, this is just the letter R. Then the description, in this case, the radius. You can also, of course, put radius of the polygon if you may like. And then we provide a value. This value serves two different purposes. The first one is the debug purpose, so that you try your Grasshopper definition and you see that it works before connecting it to ChatGPT. Now you can see that the output is exactly this test value. And also, this value is important in case that you are using not required parameters or optional parameters, because this is going to be the assumed value in case that you don't provide that information to ChatGPT. Again, for optional parameters. Then you have to specify whether that parameter is required or not. In this case, again, the radius and the number of sides are required, but the fillet radius is not required, which means that if you don't provide this information, the AI assistant is going to assume a value of 0, right? Because that's the value you are providing here as exactly as example. Then in case of number input parameters, you can also specify a minimum and maximum value. In case of the sides, of course, I have a specified number of 3, which could be a triangle, and a maximum value of 100, because why not? And they are not part of this example, but I have just isolated these components here so that you can see how to use Boolean and string inputs. The Boolean input is going to be basically a true or false value. In this case, let's imagine that our function is calculating the weather, right? So you can see it is a sunny day, and the description is sunny day, and then what you will get from ChatGPT is either true or false. Then we can also use a string inputs that is basically a text, right? And in this case, let's say that our parameter is city and the description of the city to estimate the weather, and then you provide a debug value, in this case New York, which is going to be the output of this parameter, and also the default value in case that you don't specify anything. And also for string GPT inputs, it is very interesting, this enumeration input parameter. That means that we can provide a list of strings, and then let's say the response that we'll get from ChatGPT to call our AI assistant, to call our Grasshopper script, will be one of those values, either New York, Chicago, or Boston in this case. Last but not least, of course, we have also to define our result with this function result component. Here we can let's say connect different results to this component, and we have to both provide a name of the result we're specifying and then the value. For some, let's say, complex Grasshopper scripts, you may add some warnings or some error messages in case that the user is doing something strange, and that's it. And of course, the other result that we are providing is the area of the polygon, and the value is coming from this calculation, right? This is a number, but it's going to be processed into a text string. Okay, so now we are done with the pre-processing. We have turned our Grasshopper definition into AI assistant. We may be able to close Grasshopper because, again, the idea is that you can interact with your AI assistants just by using Rhino. The users don't really need to care about Grasshopper at all. And then what you need to do, of course, is to go to the Grasshopper tab, and then you will open your Grasshopper script. In this case, this was this polygon area. We load it. Then we are back to the AI Assistant tab, and we can see that here we have now AI Assistant polygon area. If you remember, that was the name that we defined in the Grasshopper script. If you are interested, you may come back to the Grasshopper tab, and here you can see that we have our function that we defined with the description and the GPT input parameters as JSON string, in case that you may want to check it. And now we can interact with it. So for instance, we can say, hello, can you explain me what is your functionality, or what are you an expert on? And exactly now you can see that this AI assistant is specialized solely in calculating the areas of polygons. And by the way, I didn't explain that, but of course we can send messages both by typing into this text box or also by using this microphone. In order to use the microphone, you just click into this icon, you speak to your microphone, and in order to stop the recording, you just click on the microphone and again, and you wait a couple of seconds, and you will see your message popping up in the chat history part, right? And then, okay, we are getting this response from ChatGPT. Actually, I'm going to use the GPT-4 model because I'm going to show you something later on. And for instance, now, okay, so can you calculate the area of a triangle of radius, let's say 8? It should be a regular triangle, please. Okay, so now you can see that the AI assistant drew this triangle here with a radius of 8, more or less. No, more or less not, with a radius of 8, and we are getting the result here. And yeah, that's basically it. Now we can say, for instance, okay, but now I want to explore a pentagon with the same radius. Tell me the area, please. And then you can see that ChatGPT or your AI assistant updates the results, and here you get the area. And that was it for the first example. And now let's go into the second basic example, right, before jumping into the practical case studies, to see how GPT input arrays work. For that, we have to first release the Grasshopper definition here. And now we can see that the assistant is connected to no definition anymore. And now we can open the other one, which could be Horizon. In this case, this new assistant is called add numbers. If you want, you can open Grasshopper, which should be here, sorry. And then we have just defined a Grasshopper definition that takes some numbers as input, and it sums or adds up all of them. And it returns them to ChatGPT. Everything is the same as before. The only thing is this input array component. That's the only new thing. And for that, what we have to do is to specify the name and the description of this GPT input parameter. In this case, is the numbers to be added. And also the interesting thing is that the value needs to come from a previous GPT input parameter. The values of the array, they may be strings or numbers or booleans, whatever you want, but they need to come from another GPT input component, because we may need some information such as the name and description, and also minimum and maximum values in case of the GPT input of the number parameters. And those properties will go into the array. So you may specify a minimum and maximum value, and then all the values of the array that are going to be returned from ChatGPT will be constrained to those minimum and maximum specified values. Okay, so that's basically it. Now we can close the Grasshopper, and then we can see, for instance, hello, can you sum the numbers 5, 8, and 40.25, please? And exactly, it says it will calculate the sum now. So calculate it, please. And I think this is just because this is the most basic model. Let's use ChatGPT 4 now. Tell me the result, please. Okay, and now with the GPT-4 model, we are getting the result. But again, typically everything works even with the most basic model. So that was it about the how to use this tool. Basically, you can see that it's very simple. And now let's jump into the practical case studies. So now let's jump into our first case study, which will be the AI assistant that generates membrane geometries using the Kangaroo plugin. In this case, the Grasshopper definition references some geometry from Rhino, so that it is very important that before loading the AI assistant with our Rhino plugin, that we open the Rhino model, because otherwise we'll get an error. It is basically the point for the origin of the membrane, as we are going to see. And now we can load the AI assistant, which is this one. And there you go. So the first thing that I could do is to ask, okay, can you please briefly explain what's your specialty, or basically what do you do? And then it says, okay, I specialize in generating membrane geometries for constructions that provide shelter, and so on and so forth, right? The idea or my recommendation could be that you provide this instruction for the assistant in Grasshopper as detailed as possible, so other people understand your Grasshopper script as well as you do. And now we can say, okay, so maybe could you generate an... Well, I'm already regretting this because I should be using the more advanced model, I think, but let's try. Can you generate a membrane construction with radius 8 and a height of 4 meters, please? Okay, so I was actually... there was no reason for my fear, and now we have our membrane construction here generated with the Kangaroo plugin. And we're getting back even the sheltered area below this membrane, so we can see that the script or the AI assistant is working properly. And now we can do things like, okay, could you increase the height to 7 meters, please? And now we have here our updated construction. And also, for instance, let's say, okay, but I would like to have twice as many sites as we have now. So increase from 4 to 8 sites, please. And exactly, so we have our updated construction here, which is very cool. And another thing that we can do is to modify the geometry, or let's say the location of this structure, in case that we have some boundary conditions here and there. And we have two possibilities for that. Either we can talk to ChatGPT. Could you move this construction, let's say 15 meters in the Y direction? And now you can see that ChatGPT has moved it already, or we can either use the geometry that we are referencing from Rhino, like that. And that should be it. So you can see that we can both combine, let's say, manual inputs with ChatGPT as well. Now let's move to the next AI assistant, to the next case study. And by the way, I didn't explain that, but of course you can click on this button, clear history, and then you can delete all your previous messages and start the dialogue from scratch again. So in this case, actually, we don't need any kind of random geometry. So we can also, of course, create a new Rhino file from the template. There you go. And now we can release our Grasshopper definition, and we can load the new one, which could be Truss Designer. And there we go. Let's focus on the front side, and now we can also, of course, ask, okay, what do you do? But I already know what this assistant does, so now let's say, hello, can you help me design a truss structure from my industrial hall of, let's say, 20 meters length, please? And okay, so now we can see that the assistant has already calculated the truss structure. First, what it did is to estimate the height of the truss, right? Which, and this kind of rule of thumb was specified by me in the instruction in the Grasshopper script. And then it generates the truss geometry with Grasshopper, and it calculates it with Caramba. And last but not least, it returns the steel mass in kilos from the Caramba 3D plugin. And now what we can do is, okay, it looks nice, but can you try increasing the height to 1.5 meters to see if the steel mass is reduced that way? And it has increased the height. It happens very quickly because the Caramba plugin is actually quite fast, but we can see that the steel mass exactly is lower now. We have almost 4,000 kilos, and before we had 4,300, which is an improvement. And we can also say, for instance, can we go to 10 subdivisions instead of 8, please? And okay, and now we can see that we have one subdivision more on each side, and we can see that we have lowered the steel mass in 100 kilos. So there is also some optimization that we can do. And yeah, that was basically the second case study. So let's go for the final case study that, as we said, was this AI assistant called the AI engineer by us, and we created that to help users design their family houses and optimize the design in terms of the global warming potential. So let's get started, and again, this is a simplification from the actual AI assistant. Hello, can you help me design a family house of, let's say, 2 stories and 3 bedrooms, please? And okay, so we have the results here. We get first a 3D model of the house, and this is the 3D model. We have also these layouts with, we can see this should be the ground floor and the upper floor with 3 bedrooms in total, and bathroom, living room, and so on and so forth. We even have a garage here, and of course, very important now is this life cycle assessment. 258 square meters and growing potential of 288 kilo CO2 per square meter, which is above a reasonable limit. So it says, okay, we can optimize our design, for instance, by reducing the basement or using timber instead of concrete for the slab. And what we can say is, for instance, okay, so let's try getting rid of the basement. We like it, but if we help the environment that way, let's see what the results are. And now the AI assistant updated the calculation, and we have no basement anymore, and we see that we went from 280 to 206 kilos CO2 equivalent per square meter, so that's actually a very reasonable reduction. And what we can do is, yes, that could be very interesting. Can you also change the material of the slabs from concrete to timber and see the results, please? And the material was updated. You can see that this slab is green, which means that it is quite sustainable in comparison to other elements of this building, and all elements are added together. So for instance, the red color of the windows means the growing potential of all the windows together. Anyway, we have gone to 126 kilo CO2 equivalent per square meter regarding the building materials, which is of course a very nice optimization. And I think we can also change the design if we like, for instance. Okay, but I think we don't need a garage. Please, can you update the design? That doesn't really have to do with the CO2, but anyway. And, and now you can see that you don't have a garage anymore, and that's the house. And also the layout has been updated, and there is no garage here anyway. So thank you very much, and I hope you have fun with this plugin.